He cut my hours with a smile, said it wasn't personal. Now his son calls me sir in the same office he once ruled. Every report bears my name, every success my shadow. I never raised my voice. I just filed the truth. And now silence signs my paycheck. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel and tell me where you're watching from in the comments. My name is Leonard. I'm 54 years old, and this is how I learned that silence can speak louder than revenge. The hum of the office lights carried through the ceiling vents, steady and thin like a tired heartbeat. The smell of burnt coffee drifted from the break room, mixing with the faint chemical scent of toner. I sat at my desk, half shadowed by the blinds, my badge clipped to a shirt I'd ironed the night before. Another morning pretending everything was fine. Another morning acting like the hours I lost didn't sting. My boss, Mr. Dalton, had called me in 2 weeks back. Said the company was tightening resources. Said my role could be more flexible. I'd been there 21 years, taught half the team how to do the very work that now kept their lights on. He'd smiled while he cut my schedule in half, talking about balance and modern efficiency. I smiled back, the same way a preacher smiles when the storm hits his church, calm, knowing there's work to be done after the rain. That afternoon, I watched the clock strike 4 as the younger staff packed up early. Dalton's son, Kyle, strolled in with a fresh degree and an even fresher arrogance. Loud sneakers, loud perfume, louder confidence. He spoke like the world was waiting for him to arrive. Kyle, you the one that runs the floor here? Me. I keep it running. There's a difference. He laughed, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. He didn't know me, not really. Didn't know how many contracts bore my handwriting, how many clients still asked for Leonard by name. But that was fine. Silence was a teacher. That night I went home, sat on my porch in Decatur, and opened my notebook. The pages smelled of ink and quiet hours, the kind of smell that means thinking's about to start. My wife, Sharon, came out with sweet tea, looked at me over her glasses. Sharon, you stewing again, Len? Me. No, just simmering. She smiled, the way only a woman who's seen every rise and fall can smile. Then make it worth the wait. I did. At work, I started studying the internship structure. Every year, the company partnered with the local university, bringing in eager students who needed supervision. Most of them wanted to work under Dalton, or his favorites. But I had a reputation for patience, and HR loved paperwork that sounded steady. So I volunteered to mentor, quietly, consistently. When I drew up the new mentorship forms, I made sure to add one small line in the supervisor section. Direct oversight and project evaluation will be under the guidance of Leonard H. Morgan. HR signed off without blinking. I filed it officially, notarized, time-stamped, and sent to the internal legal queue. Filed at the Fulton County Clerk Office. Case number 2025-11873. Paper doesn't need a voice. It just waits. 2 weeks later, Dalton strutted into the bullpen, his gold cufflinks flashing under the white lights. Big news, he said. My son's joining the team for a 6-month internship. He said it like we should clap. Some did. I didn't. He looked at me, expecting a reaction. I gave him the same polite nod I'd been giving him since 2012, the one that means I already know more than you think. When the intern roster came out, Kyle's name sat neatly under mine. Supervisor, Leonard H. Morgan. He walked up to me, waving the paper. Kyle, guess I'm working with you, huh? Me. Guess so. Hope you brought a notebook. He smirked a, man, I'm just here to learn how this place really moves. Me. Then you came to the right desk. I watched him those first few weeks. How he skimmed instead of studied. How he talked more than he listened. Every mistake he made, I corrected gently. Made sure it was logged under the mentorship report. Every success, I let him take the front. But the paperwork always led back to me. Prepared under supervision of L.H. Morgan. It's funny how small print carries big weight. The office buzzed louder each Friday. Printers jammed, phones rang, footsteps echoed off tile. I could measure a man by how he handled that noise. Kyle stumbled through it at first. Lost files, late reports, wrong emails. But slowly, he started watching me, mimicking the quiet, asking fewer questions, giving more thought. I didn't tell him I noticed. Some lessons only grow in silence. One afternoon, we had a client presentation. Dalton insisted on leading it, but when the projector froze, the room stiffened. Everyone turned to Kyle, who panicked. Then his eyes darted to me. I clicked my mouse once, fixed the error, and the slide appeared. Clean, formatted, efficient. Dalton blinked. How'd you... Me. Practice. The client smiled, said, Looks like your senior team's got it handled. I caught Dalton's reflection in the glass, the faint twitch of a man realizing he'd overlooked the foundation holding up his house. That evening, I walked to my car under a fading sunset. The sky over Atlanta burned soft orange and purple, like it couldn't decide between peace and pride. I passed the company plaque by the front door. My name wasn't on it, not yet, but I could feel its place forming, quiet as a seed under concrete. At home, I grilled ribs out back while the radio hummed gospel low through the screen door. The smell of hickory smoke wrapped around me, steady as prayer. My son called from Chicago, said he'd been offered a promotion. I told him, Keep your head low and your paperwork high. He laughed. That's you all over, Pops. Silent, but dangerous. I smiled at the smoke rising into the night. Some lessons pass down whether you write them or not. Back at work, Kyle began to change. He stopped wearing headphones, started showing up early, asked better questions. When Dalton praised him in meetings, I didn't say a word. Didn't need to. Each line in the project folder already traced back to my desk. He was learning, not just how to work, but how to respect the work. A month later, Dalton approached me, his tone softer than before. Leonard, you've really shaped him up. Kid's finally showing discipline. I nodded. Good foundation matters. He nodded back. Maybe for the first time, he meant it. That night, I sat on my porch again. The streetlights flickered across the cracked sidewalk. Somewhere down the block, a choir practiced at the community church. Their voices drifted through the air. Rough, honest, alive. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and let the sound settle. Some folks chase revenge with noise. I prefer silence. It travels further. The office smelled different on Mondays, faintly of floor polish and ambition. People came in early, not because they wanted to, but because Monday made liars out of us all. I watched them shuffle in with that look of, maybe this week will be better. Kyle came in 5 minutes early, no headphones, shirt tucked. He gave me a nod instead of that old cocky smirk. I returned it. Small change, but change nonetheless. He said, Morning, Mr. Morgan. Morning, I replied. Project deck ready? Yes, sir. Printed and double-checked. He was learning the rhythm of the place, the small things that build reputation. You don't teach that with lectures. You teach it by example, by quiet consistency. The boss, Dalton, strolled in later, all cologne and ego. Morning, gentlemen, he said, tapping his watch like he owned time itself. Let's make it a productive week. He didn't notice the tension, how the team's eyes followed me more than him now. Respect moves like a slow current. You don't see it until you're already downstream. At lunch, I sat at my usual corner table in the cafeteria. Kyle joined me, tray in hand. Mind if I sit? He asked. I gestured to the seat. Long as you eat more than you talk? He laughed, a real laugh this time, not the practice one he wore his first day. Deal. We ate in silence for a while. Then he looked up. My dad said you've been here since before the remodel. 2 remodels, actually, I said. Watch them tear down good walls just to paint new ones the same color. He nodded slowly, maybe understanding a bit more of what it means to build things people forget you built. He hesitated. He can be tough sometimes. I didn't look up. Leadership's easy when you never sweep the floor. That shut him up, but not in a bad way. It was the kind of silence that plants a seed. Later that week, I found a draft memo on my desk, a policy Dalton wanted to push that would streamline supervision by reducing oversight to senior mentors. In short, it meant cutting me out of the loop. I read it twice, folded it neatly, slipped it into my folder labeled Redline Archive. Every old worker keeps one, the folder where truth waits its turn. I checked the timestamp. It hadn't gone to the board yet. So I did what I always did. I worked the system, not against it. I emailed HR, attaching the mentorship reports with my signature and Kyle's improved evaluations. I CC'd the compliance officer, referencing per training structure filed under case number 225-10873. Within 2 hours, the policy draft had been recalled for review. Quiet wins are still wins. That evening, the rain came hard, thick Georgia drops that slapped the pavement like judgment. I drove home slow, tires hissing against the water, windshield wipers singing their tired rhythm. When I got to my porch, Sharon was waiting with that same calm look. "You look lighter," she said. "Just trim some weeds." She poured me coffee, sweet and dark. "The kind that don't die easy?" I smiled. "The kind that don't know how." Inside, the TV hummed low, local news showing another corporate merger downtown. I watched the ticker crawl past. Dalton and Brigson Inc. announces internship expansion program. There it was. My idea, my structure, my signature, publicized under a new name. I didn't get mad. I got busy. Next morning, I printed every file showing my mentorship design, every version, every update, every time-stamped revision. I bound them together, added a cover page titled Original Program Framework, submitted by L.H. Morgan. Then I walked it to the company records room, quietly, no fuss, logged it under internal documentation, verified 2025. When you've worked long enough, you learn the real power isn't in titles, it's in archives. Kyle started to notice too. "You keep everything," he said one afternoon. "Paper remembers," I replied. "People forget." He nodded. "Guess I got more to learn from you than I thought." I smiled. Lesson 1. Let him underestimate you. It keeps the air quiet. Weeks went by. The rhythm settled. Morning coffee, daily reports, subtle respect growing like moss in the corners. Dalton kept taking credit, of course. His type can't help it. But his son's eyes told a different story every meeting. Less arrogance, more understanding. Then came Friday's meeting. The board gathered for quarterly review. Dalton presented the internship results, full of charts and buzzwords. I sat near the back, quiet, while Kyle handled the clicker. When one of the directors asked, "Who developed this mentorship framework?" Kyle hesitated. His eyes flicked to me. He cleared his throat. This was originally created by Mr. Leonard Morgan." The room shifted, soft but real. Dalton froze. "Ah, yes," he said quickly. "Leonard helped with some of the groundwork." Kyle interrupted, voice steady. "No, sir, he built the groundwork. I just followed it." Silence. Then a quiet clap from one of the senior board members. "Well then, Mr. Morgan, we owe you thanks." I nodded. "Just doing my job." Dalton's jaw tightened. That was the first time he didn't smile. After the meeting, he caught me by the elevator. "You didn't need to." I raised a hand. I didn't say anything. He did. He stared at me, trying to find something to hold over me. But there was nothing left. Every file, every report, every trace, all stamped, dated, verified. My silence had already spoken. That weekend, the community church held its annual fish fry. I went with Sharon, bought a plate, and sat by the choir stand. The air smelled like fried catfish and oak smoke. Deacon Fields was collecting donations for the Youth Scholarship Fund. "Len, you bring in any of your young folks this year?" he asked. I nodded toward Kyle, who'd shown up to volunteer, wearing a plain white apron and a smile that didn't look forced anymore. "Maybe one," I said. Fields chuckled. "Good seed you planting." "Trying to," I said. The sky burned gold over the churchyard. Gospel music spilled out of the open doors. Somewhere in that sound, I heard something I hadn't felt in a while. Balance. Because revenge doesn't always come dressed in fire. Sometimes it comes wearing patience and a clean shirt. By October, the mornings came slower. The city air hung damp with early fog, and the office parking lot glistened with dew. I parked in my usual spot beneath the flickering light pole, same one I'd parked under since the company still used paper time cards. Inside, the hum of printers and the faint chatter of keyboards filled the space. People moved differently now. A few more morning Mr. Morgan greetings than usual. Even the receptionist, who used to barely glance my way, had started bringing an extra sugar packet for my coffee. Respect has a quiet way of sneaking up on a place. Kyle was already at his desk when I walked in, tapping through reports, his tie slightly crooked. "Morning, sir," he said. "Morning, son. You're early," he smiled. "Figured I'd beat the traffic and get a head start." That's when I knew the lesson had settled deep. Not just about work, but about worth. Around 10, Dalton sent out an email. Team meeting at 11 a.m. sharp. Mandatory. No subject line, no details. The kind of message that smelled like control. I printed my current reports, grabbed a notepad, and walked into the conference room right on time. The long table gleamed under fluorescent light, and the projector hummed in the background. Dalton stood at the front, tie perfectly knotted, eyes bright with performance. "Morning, everyone," he said. "Today we're reviewing the new mentorship expansion and corporate restructuring plan." Restructuring. That word lands like thunder when you've worked too long to trust clear skies. He clicked through slides full of company buzzwords. Innovation, efficiency, next generation. Then he landed on a chart labeled Leadership Consolidation Flow. My name wasn't on it. I sat still, back straight. No reaction. Dalton cleared his throat. "Going forward, mentorship oversight will be centralized under executive management. That means new reporting lines and fewer direct supervisors." Translation. He wanted his fingerprints on everything again. The room stayed quiet. Kyle looked over at me, jaw tight. I gave him the smallest nod. Stay steady. When it ended, Dalton smiled that politician's smile. "Leonard, can I see you in my office?" I followed him in. The blinds were half drawn, sunlight slicing across the carpet. "Nothing personal," he began. "This is just about structure. Growth." I waited a beat. "Structure, huh? Funny word when you start tearing down the foundation." He frowned. "You've been with us a long time. You'll still mentor, just not directly. Think of it as streamlining." I leaned forward slightly. "Filed under which policy, sir?" He blinked. "Excuse me?" "Case number 255-11873, the one that established mentorship oversight under direct supervision of project leads." He froze, eyes flicking to his computer. He knew I wasn't bluffing. Every time I'd filed an amendment, I'd made sure it sat in both legal and HR archives. Paper doesn't sweat, but people do. "Leonard," he said carefully, "you're overcomplicating this." "No," I said, voice low. "You are. I built something that worked. You just don't like that it worked without you." He exhaled through his nose like he wanted to argue but didn't have the air for it. "Get back to work," he said finally. "Already am," I replied. I left his office with that calm that comes after thunder, when the air smells clean again. Back at my desk, I drafted a memo for my records. Meeting with Executive Management, October 6th, 2025. Summary. Discussion of mentorship consolidation and oversight rights. Attached supporting documentation. Forwarded to HR and the Compliance Division. No emotion, just evidence. That evening I met with my friend Clarence down at his barbershop on Auburn Avenue. The air was thick with aftershave and old blues records. A couple of the fellas were talking about football, but Clarence waved me over. "Man, you look like you carrying something heavy but clean," he said. "Just keeping my paperwork straight." He chuckled. "You always did believe in the long game." I nodded. "It's the only game that don't cheat back." He leaned on his counter. "You ever gonna tell that man what you're doing?" I smiled. "Don't need to. He's already writing my story for me. He just don't know it yet." The bell on the door jingled as a customer came in. I shook Clarence's hand and left. Outside, the night air smelled of rain and fried food from the diner across the street. Streetlights reflected off puddles, and somewhere a saxophone played faint through an open window. Atlanta has a way of humming when something's about to shift. The next day, a notice went out company-wide. All mentorship evaluations will be subject to legal audit due to discrepancies in reporting hierarchy. Dalton stormed past my desk. You had something to do with this? I kept typing. Just doing what the system requires. Transparency, right? His jaw worked, but he said nothing. By noon, HR called me in. Mr. Morgan, we'll need you to verify the documentation of your supervisory role. Already have it printed, I said, handing them the folder. Every form, every timestamp, each signed by Kyle and notarized by the internal office clerk. They scanned through, eyes widening. This is thorough. Thorough keeps me fed, I said. That evening, Kyle found me by the break room. He looked uneasy. My dad's upset. I imagine he is. He said you blindsided him. I stirred my coffee. No, son, I just turned on the lights. He didn't say anything for a moment. Then, you ever think maybe you're teaching both of us? I looked at him. Really looked. The arrogance was gone. What was left was a man beginning to understand legacy. Maybe, I said, but some lessons hurt before they heal. That night I drove home through downtown. Neon signs blurred in the drizzle. Sharon had cooked collard greens and cornbread. We ate quietly, the way folks do when peace is earned, not given. She asked, You done yet? Not yet, I said, but the echo's coming. Because sometimes revenge doesn't need to speak. It just needs to wait until the right voice carries its truth. The morning after the audit, the office felt tense, like a church before confession. Nobody said much. The usual laughter from the younger staff was gone. Even the copier sounded nervous, stuttering out pages that smelled faintly of toner and fear. Kyle walked in slow, head low, a stack of folders under his arm. Morning, Mr. Morgan, I nodded. You sleep? Barely. He set the folders on my desk. Dad's been on the phone since 6. Legal team, board, HR, all of them. Good, I said. Maybe he'll learn what a paper trail feels like. He didn't answer, just looked at me with that quiet shame only sons can carry for their fathers. I sighed, pushing the coffee mug aside. Sit down, Kyle. He did. You working hard? Yes, sir. You learning? He nodded. More than I expected. Then don't let his mistakes stop that. He met my eyes. I'm not him. No, but he's watching how you handle this. So am I. He took a deep breath and stood. Then I'll handle it right. The rest of the day, I buried myself in the mentorship files, cross-checking timestamps, matching entries. When I file something, I treat it like a sermon. You never want to be caught without scripture when folks come asking for proof. By afternoon, HR called another meeting. This one included the company's legal advisor, a woman named Ms. Patterson with sharp eyes and sharper heels. She carried a binder thick as a family Bible. Mr. Morgan, she said, opening it, you filed case number 2025-11873, correct? Yes, ma'am. And all documentation listed under that case corresponds to mentorship assignments, evaluations, and internal program design? That's correct. She flipped a few pages. Then it appears your structure predates the recent consolidation plan by almost 8 months. Dalton sat across from me, jaw tight. That doesn't change executive authority. Ms. Patterson raised a brow. It changes liability. If the audit finds misrepresentation, this could move beyond HR. Silence, the kind that doesn't need volume to make itself known. Dalton shifted in his seat. I was unaware of the filing. I spoke softly. That's why you hire people who pay attention. She nodded, closing the binder. We'll proceed accordingly. When I left the room, the hallway lights buzzed low. The carpet felt softer under my shoes. There's a strange calm that comes when the truth finally clocks in for its shift. Back at my desk, Kyle sat waiting. He looked pale. Dad's furious. He'll live, I said. He said you embarrassed him. I leaned back. I didn't embarrass him. I just stopped covering his reflection. He swallowed hard. He might try to fire you. Let him try. The contract says otherwise. That night I didn't drive home right away. I stopped by the church instead. The doors were open for midweek prayer. I sat in the last pew, hands folded. Didn't say much, just listened to the soft murmur of voices up front. Deacon Fields saw me and came over. "You all right, Brother Morgan?" "Just keeping my piece polished," I said. He smiled. "Peace don't shine unless you use it." I nodded. "That's why I'm here." When I got home, Sharon had the porch light on and jazz playing from the kitchen. She knew what that meant. Victory not yet declared, but earned inch by inch. "Dalton still fighting?" she asked. "More like drowning." "Good. Just don't get pulled in." "I won't," I said. "I built my raft out of paperwork." We laughed, the kind that settles into your bones. By Friday, corporate sent a notice. Effective immediately, mentorship oversight reverts to its original structure pending review. The subtext was clear. Dalton's consolidation plan was dead. I printed the notice, folded it carefully, and pinned it to the corner of my corkboard right above my desk. Kyle came by later, holding 2 coffees. "He's been quiet all day," he said. "Silence is heavy when it ain't yours," I replied. He set 1 coffee down. "You know, I used to think this place ran on meetings and speeches. Turns out it runs on records and patience." I smiled. "That's the grown man gospel." He grinned. "You really think things will change?" "They already are." That afternoon, Dalton called me into his office again. This time his tone was different. Slower. Lower. "Leonard, I don't know what to say." "Try thank you," I said. He sighed. "You think this makes us even?" "I don't believe in even," I said. "I believe in balance. You cut my hours. I built something you couldn't erase. Now we're steady." He rubbed his temple. "You always were a stubborn man." "Consistency gets mistaken for stubbornness," I replied. "Ask any oak tree." He chuckled once, dry but real. "What do you want, Leonard?" "Nothing. Just space to work, and my name where it belongs." He nodded. "That can be arranged." I stood. "Already is." Walking back through that office felt different. People didn't avoid my eyes anymore. Some even nodded as I passed. Recognition doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it's just in how folks say your name. That evening, Kyle stopped by my desk. "You ever think about retirement?" "Every Monday," I said, smiling. "Why?" "Because when you do, I want to take over, right? The way you taught me." I studied him a moment. "Then promise me something." "Anything. Keep your paperwork honest, your silence strong, and your name clean." He nodded slowly. "I will." Outside, the sky glowed deep amber. The city hummed low, traffic lights blinking like slow heartbeats. Somewhere between the hum of engines and the whisper of wind, I felt something I hadn't felt since before Dalton cut my hours. Stillness that didn't feel like defeat. That's when I realized revenge was never about payback. It was about restoration. The air in the office that Monday felt thin, like something had shifted under the walls. People whispered softer, typed slower. Even Dalton's footsteps, usually loud and clipped, seemed to have lost their rhythm. I sat at my desk, coffee cooling beside the keyboard. The hum of the HVAC sounded steady, a quiet metronome counting time I'd already reclaimed. Kyle arrived early again, tie straight this time, carrying a small stack of folders. "Morning, Mr. Morgan," he said. "Morning, son. You ready?" He nodded. "Big week ahead?" "Always is," I said. He hesitated before setting the folders down. "Dad said the board wants to meet about restructuring again." I didn't look up. "Of course they do. Power hates a quiet man with proof." That got a half smile out of him. "He's trying to clean up his image. He'll learn you can't polish glass with mud." By mid-morning, Dalton sent a company-wide email announcing a new transparency initiative. That was corporate code for damage control. Still, he included my name this time. Mr. Leonard Morgan will assist in revising mentorship documentation and leadership development frameworks. It was small, almost invisible between the jargon, but it was there. Recognition printed in black and white. I printed it twice and pinned one copy on my wall. The rest of the day passed in slow rhythm. Emails, spreadsheets, polite nods from folks who once treated me like furniture. I didn't need apologies. Acknowledgement was enough. Around noon, Kyle came to my desk. "Lunch on me today," he said, my way of saying thanks. I followed him to the diner down the street, the kind that still served cornbread with chili and played Motown in the background. The waitress knew my order before I sat down: fried catfish, collard greens, sweet tea heavy on the sugar. Kyle pushed his plate aside halfway through. "You ever think about how small things change big things?" "All the time," I said. "That's why I don't rush 'em." He looked thoughtful. "I used to think power meant control. Now I think it's patience." "Then you're learning right," I said. "Control burns out. Patience grows roots." He nodded, quiet for a long moment. Then, "Dad used to talk about you, said you were reliable but old-fashioned. Old-fashioned builds what new-fashioned breaks." He laughed softly. "He sees it now." "Maybe, but seeing and changing ain't the same." When we got back, Dalton's office door was closed, blinds drawn. From inside, voices rose, one sharp, one calm. Ms. Patterson's tone carried through the wall like truth in a courtroom. "Mr. Dalton, the audit shows multiple oversights in policy revisions," she said. He muttered something I couldn't catch. Then her voice again. "You'll need to issue a corrective statement, preferably acknowledging the original program author." My fingers froze over the keyboard. A corrective statement. Official recognition. That evening, when the office emptied, I stayed behind. The light from my desk lamp cast long shadows across the paperwork. I opened my folder, the one marked Mentorship Framework, Original Files. The pages smelled faintly of ink, time, and vindication. I read through them slowly, not to check for errors, there were none, but to remember the hours they'd cost me, the hours he'd cut, the patience I'd built in their place. Just before leaving, my email pinged. New message. Subject: Internal acknowledgement. Program origin credit. I clicked it open. Effective immediately, the Leadership Development Program shall include attribution to its primary architect, Mr. Leonard H. Morgan, whose mentorship model remains foundational to our continued success. Signed, Richard Dalton, Executive Director. I stared at it for a long while, not because I needed it, but because of what it cost to make it real. When I got home, Sharon was sitting on the porch, a glass of lemonade sweating in her hand. The crickets were loud, and the air smelled of cut grass. "You got that look," she said. "What look?" "The one you get when patience finally pays." I smiled. Maybe it did. She leaned back in her chair, then let it rest a while. I sat beside her. "Not done yet." "Still cooking?" "Always." Tuesday came quiet. Kyle dropped by my desk mid-morning, grinning. They posted it on the intranet page, too. Whole department saw it. "I'm aware," I said, keeping my tone even. "You really not gonna celebrate?" "Son, I celebrated when I didn't lose myself." He nodded, then said something that caught me off guard. "You taught me more in 3 months than my dad did in 30 years. I looked at him a long time. "Then make it count. Every signature, every late night, every person you help, make it count." He smiled. "I will." That afternoon, Dalton approached my desk for the first time in weeks. No pretense, no swagger. Just a man learning how to walk without pride holding him up. "Leonard," he said quietly, "the board approved your name on the mentorship policy permanently. It's archived." "Appreciate it," I said. He hesitated. "For what it's worth, you built something good here." I nodded once. "Took both of us, one way or another." He managed a faint smile. "Guess we both learned." "Maybe you did," I said softly. That night, as I drove home down the quiet streets of Decatur, the city lights shimmered against the wet pavement. Gospel music drifted through my car speakers, smooth and low, an old hymn about grace that don't rush. I thought about every hour he cut, every form I filed, every quiet moment that stacked like bricks toward this balance. Revenge hadn't burned anything, it had rebuilt something, and that, I realized, was rarer than victory. The next few weeks passed like slow water over stone, quiet, steady, reshaping everything without anyone noticing at first. The office, once buzzing with the sound of Dalton's authority, now moved to a different rhythm. Patient, measured, respectful. I still kept my same desk near the window. The same mug, same notebooks, same black pen I'd used since 2014. But something invisible had shifted. The space carried weight now. People spoke softer when they came near. Even Dalton, when he walked past, gave that half-nod men give when they've finally seen what they should have noticed years ago. Kyle kept showing up early. Sometimes I'd find him already at the copier, printing drafts of project plans for me to review. He'd leave them on my desk with a note. "We'll refine. After your input." It made me think of my own son, Marcus, who used to do the same when he was in college. Always asking, "Pop, can you check my essay before I turn it in?" I used to circle things in red, not to correct him, but to remind him that precision was a form of pride. Now, here was Dalton's boy learning the same way. Funny how life balances its scales without ever asking your permission. That Thursday, the HR director called me upstairs. Her office smelled like citrus cleaner and expensive paper. On the wall hung a framed quote, "Integrity is doing the right thing when no one is watching." "Mr. Morgan," she said, smiling, "we're updating internal leadership profiles. The board wants a feature on the mentorship program's success, including its origin story. They asked if you'd approve a short interview." I raised a brow. "Interview?" "Yes, something for the company newsletter and LinkedIn page. It's long overdue." I leaned back. Long overdue sounds about right. She laughed softly. "It'll be brief. Just a few questions about your philosophy." "Patience and paperwork," I said. She blinked, unsure if I was serious. I smiled. "That's the philosophy." When I left her office, I saw Dalton standing by the glass railing. He looked older than he did a few months ago. Tired, quieter. Success can make you loud. Consequence teaches silence. He glanced at me. "They told me about the interview. You deserve it." "Deserves a heavy word," I said. "Let's just call it accurate." He nodded slowly. "You're not going to drag me in it, are you?" "I don't drag people," I said. "I document outcomes." He almost smiled. "You really are a piece of work, Leonard." "I prefer Cornerstone," I said, and walked away. That night, Sharon had gumbo on the stove and soft blues playing from the radio. The house smelled like onions and peace. "How's your week?" she asked. "Why, quiet." "That your new favorite word?" "It's the one I earned," she chuckled, stirring the pot. "So, when's the interview?" "Tomorrow. They want me to talk about mentorship." She turned, wooden spoon in hand. "Then tell them the truth, that mentorship ain't about teaching folks to rise. It's about teaching them not to fall the same way you did." I nodded. "That's exactly what I'll say." The next morning, the interviewer, a young communications woman named Tasha, met me in the small conference room. She had bright eyes and a recorder sitting on the table. "Thank you for doing this, Mr. Morgan," she said. "I've read about your program. Impressive work." "Appreciate it," I said. She pressed record. "So tell me, what inspired your mentorship framework?" I thought for a moment. "Loss," I said simply. "They cut my hours once. Thought it'd cut my worth. But time doesn't define value. Purpose does. So I decided to use what I had left to build something that couldn't be cut." She nodded, scribbling notes. "That's powerful." "It's practical," I said, "and practical things tend to last." She smiled. "What do you think makes a good mentor?" "Patience, listening, and knowing when silence teaches more than words." We talked another half hour. At the end, she asked if she could take my picture for the company site. I stood by the window, city skyline behind me, light catching the gray in my beard. When she was done, she said softly, You look like someone who's been through something and came out steadier. I suppose that's fair, I said. That afternoon, the piece went live internally. Within minutes, emails started coming in. Quiet congratulations, thank yous from staff I barely spoke to. Even the maintenance guy stopped by my desk. Mr. Morgan, read your story, he said. Good to see somebody tell it like it is. Appreciate that, I said. Late that evening, as I was packing up, Kyle appeared at the doorway. They sent the link to my dad, he said. He showed me, didn't say much. Didn't need to, I said. He hesitated. You know, he used to think silence meant weakness. And now? He says maybe it's just a stronger kind of loud. I smiled. Sounds like he's starting to understand. When I got home, I sat on the porch with Sharon again. The crickets were louder than usual, the air thick with the smell of rain. You look lighter, she said. I told the truth, I said, and the world didn't end. She smiled. It rarely does. In the distance, thunder rolled soft against the horizon. I thought about all those years, the long hours, the cuts, the quiet. Each one had built something more permanent than revenge could ever buy. Justice hadn't come through shouting. It came through structure, through the patient stacking of truth, document by document, lesson by lesson. And though the storm clouds gathered over the city, I knew something now that Dalton never did. You can't stop what's built on peace, no matter how loud you try to talk over it. When the article went public, the tone around the office changed. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady, like the building itself had exhaled. People started coming by my desk more often, not with questions, but with stories. A young analyst said, Mr. Morgan, my dad used to talk about working through things instead of around them. You remind me of him. An older receptionist said, you taught this place how to slow down and think again. Even the intern from HR, a girl barely 20, thanked me for making patience sound like power. I didn't write that piece for applause, but truth echoes louder than you plan sometimes. Kyle printed it out and framed a copy on his desk. I saw it when I passed by. He'd highlighted one line, silence, handled right, isn't surrender, it's structure. That Friday morning, the board meeting was called again. Only this time, I wasn't an observer. They'd added my name to the agenda. Item 3, Program Integration Proposal. Lead, L.H. Morgan. I sat at the long oak table, hands folded, calm as always. Dalton was there too, across from me. He looked not small, but humbled, like a man learning to share air. The chairman cleared his throat. Mr. Morgan, we've reviewed the mentorship framework you designed. The results have exceeded expectations. Productivity's up 15%, turnover's down. He looked at Dalton. This was your department, wasn't it? Dalton nodded. It was, he said slowly, and Leonard deserves every bit of that credit. The words were plain, but they carried weight, the kind of weight that shifts walls. The chairman smiled. Then it settled. Mr. Morgan, you'll be given direct oversight of the expanded internship and mentorship program. New title, Senior Development Coordinator. I nodded. Thank you, sir. Dalton gave a small smile. Tired, maybe, but genuine. Congratulations, Leonard. Appreciate it, I said. We'll make it work. He hesitated. We already are. The meeting ended quietly. No applause, no fanfare, just respect settling where pride used to sit. I went back to my desk and opened the window blinds. The city sunlight poured in, gold against the dust motes, floating through the air. For the first time in months, I felt time move without resistance. At lunch, Kyle came by. He told me he's proud of you, he said. Of me? I asked. He nodded. And of me, too. Said maybe the best lesson he ever gave me was watching him be wrong. I leaned back. That's a rare gift. Don't waste it. I won't, he said. Later that afternoon, the HR director brought a folder to my desk. Official documents for the title change. I signed them slowly. Each stroke of the pen careful, final. Filed and notarized, I asked. Filed, notarized, and archived, she said with a grin. Good, I said. That's how peace stays permanent. After work, I stopped at the same barbershop where Clarence always held court. The smell of shaving cream and aftershave hit me like memory. He looked up from his chair, laughing. Man, I saw you on that company page. Didn't know I had a celebrity sitting in my chair all these years. I chuckled. Ain't no celebrity. Just took a while for folks to read the right footnotes. He grinned. How's the boss handling it? Quietly. That mean he learned something? Maybe we both did. When I got home, Marcus called. My son's voice carried that energy of someone still chasing the future. Pop, I saw your feature. They got you looking all official. You smiling in that photo too. Don't get used to it, I said. Laughing, he chuckled. Man, that's big. You proud? I'm peaceful. That's better. He paused. Guess that's what you were teaching me all along. That's what I hoped. After dinner, Sharon and I sat out back again, listening to the hum of cicadas under the soft glow of the porch light. She handed me a glass of iced tea. So, Senior Development Coordinator, she said with a smirk. That sound fancy enough for you? Too fancy, I said, but I'll take the parking spot. She laughed, that deep kind of laugh that comes from watching time reward patience. The stars hung low, and the smell of the garden mixed with summer air. I thought about every version of myself that had sat on this porch before, tired, angry, unsure, and I realized each of them had paved a brick for this quiet road. Dalton's voice echoed faint in my memory from years back. We're cutting hours, Leonard. It's not personal. But it had been personal, because they all are. Every disrespect, every dismissal, every time someone tells you you're lucky to still have a chair when you built the table. But revenge had never been the destination. It was just the road I walked to reach dignity. And dignity, I learned, doesn't shout. It signs its name, stamps it with time, and lets the truth record itself. The first Monday with my new title felt normal. Not grand, not triumphant, just quietly right. I parked in the same spot I'd parked in for 2 decades, under that flickering light pole that still hadn't been fixed. I carried the same lunch bag Sharon packed me, same thermos of sweet coffee, same steady step through the glass doors, but something subtle had changed. The security guard nodded deeper. The receptionist smiled longer. Folks who used to breeze by without eye contact now paused to greet me proper. Not because of the title, those fade quick, but because respect had finally settled where it belonged. Inside, the company newsletter lay folded on everyone's desks. My face, mid-smile, caught in sunlight near the window. The headline read, Leadership in Silence, The Legacy of Patience. I chuckled softly. Legacy, I whispered. That's a big word for a man who just wanted fair hours. Kyle came by mid-morning carrying 2 coffees. Figured we'd toast your first official day. Appreciate it, I said. He sat across from me. Dad told me to tell you he's proud of how this worked out. I looked up. He say it himself? Kyle smiled. Not yet, but he's trying. That counts, I said. He laughed. He's got this new thing now. Says we're focusing on restorative leadership. Fancy term for humility, I said. He nodded. Guess so. We sipped coffee quietly, watching the office move around us. The energy had changed, slower, smoother. People were collaborating more, laughing more, trusting more. Structure brings peace when pride steps aside. Around noon, Dalton appeared at my desk. He looked tired, but not defeated. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his tone steady. Leonard, he said, can I have a word? I stood. Sure. He gestured toward the glass meeting room. When we stepped inside, he closed the door gently. I've been thinking, he said. You've done more for this department than I ever did. You built something that works, something that doesn't need control to survive. I stayed quiet, letting him find his own words. He continued, When I cut your hours, I thought I was trimming fat. Turns out I was cutting the roots. And you let me learn that without saying a word. I don't think I could have done the same. I folded my hands. You were protecting what you thought was yours. I was protecting what was right. He nodded slowly. And you were right. For a moment we just stood there. Two men, one humbled by consequence, one strengthened by restraint. Then he extended his hand. I owe you an apology and my thanks. I took his hand. Firm grip, solid eye contact. Apology accepted, I said. Thanks noted. He smiled, half in relief, half in reflection. Maybe one day you'll take my seat. I smirked. I don't need your seat. I already built mine. He laughed softly. Fair enough. When I walked out, Kyle was at his desk pretending not to watch. But I saw the look. Pride, relief, maybe both. By late afternoon, a memo went out company-wide. Effective immediately, all mentorship and internship evaluations will report directly to Senior Development Coordinator L.H. Morgan. Future structural changes require written approval by the Office of Compliance. That line, require written approval, was my quiet victory anthem. It meant no more cutting corners, no more overnight decisions. It meant the work finally had protection. That evening, I stopped by the old library downtown, the same one where I'd studied at night while working 2 jobs decades ago. The smell of paper and dust hit me like memory. I found a quiet table, opened my notebook, and began writing. At the top of the page, legacy notes. For Marcus, I wrote, Son, never waste energy proving worth to people who can't see it. Just keep records, keep faith, and keep calm. Time will do the talking. Every signature you earn should come from patience, not pressure. Silence is only power when it's built on preparation. I closed the notebook, feeling that small, good tired that comes after building something right. When I stepped outside, the city had cooled down. The air smelled of asphalt and distant barbecue. Streetlights blinked to life one by one, as if the city was exhaling its own relief. I drove home slow, windows cracked, gospel humming through the speakers. The song was old, one my mama used to hum while cleaning. Lord, don't move my mountain, just give me strength to climb. It hit different now. I used to think revenge meant knocking down the mountain, but life taught me better. Some mountains exist just to show how far you're willing to climb without losing your soul. When I got home, Sharon was on the porch swing, feet tucked under her robe. You look done, she said. Maybe not done, I replied. Just steady. She smiled. That's what peace looks like. I sat beside her, the swing creaking slow. The night air was soft, the crickets steady. I never wanted to hurt him, I said quietly. I know, Ipupo, she replied. You just wanted to be seen. Exactly, she nodded. And now you are. That's enough. And for the first time in years, it was autumn slid over Atlanta, quiet and golden. Leaves drifted through the parking lot like slow applause, and every morning smelled faintly of rain and warm paper. Inside the office, the tone had changed for good. Less rush, more rhythm. Even the air felt fairer. I arrived early as usual, my steps echoing down the hallway that once carried whispers behind my back. Now it carried greetings. Morning, Mr. Morgan. Morning, sir. Morning, Leonard. Each word small but real. It's funny how acknowledgement feels heavier than money when it's earned inch by inch. Kyle was already at his desk, typing. He looked up with a grin. Morning, boss. I raised an eyebrow. Don't start? He laughed. You are the boss now, at least of us. Supervisor, I said. Boss is temporary. Respects the long game. He nodded. Then I'm watching closely. Around 10, Dalton called for a full team meeting. I walked in expecting the usual PowerPoint sermon, but what I got was something quieter, deliberate. He stood at the front, jacket off, sleeves rolled. Team, he began, some of you have been here long enough to remember how things used to be. Fast, loud, and sometimes careless. A few chuckled softly. He glanced at me. Leonard taught us better. Structure, patience, precision. That's the example I ignored too long. I didn't move, didn't smile, just listened. Dalton continued. We're rebranding our mentorship division as the Morgan Initiative, honoring the man who rebuilt this place from its quiet corners. The room stilled. You could feel the breath shift. Kyle's eyes went wide. I blinked once. Slow. That necessary? I asked. Dalton nodded. It's overdue. He handed me the framed certificate. The Morgan Initiative, established 2025, founded on integrity, patience, and guidance. The room clapped. Not loud, not showy, just the kind of applause that feels like exhale after years of holding breath. I shook his hand. Thank you, I said. He met my eyes. No, thank you. When the meeting ended, Kyle stayed behind. He really did that, he said. Guess he finally heard the echo, I replied. You gonna hang that up? Maybe later, I said. I'm not finished writing the story yet. The next few weeks ran smooth. Projects delivered early, interns thriving, even the board noticing the new calm. HR started modeling other departments after our structure. They called it the Morgan Method. I didn't name it. I just kept working. One morning I found a sealed envelope on my desk. Inside, a handwritten note from Dalton. Leonard, I spent years trying to lead from pride. You led from purpose. I didn't see it because I wasn't listening. Thank you for teaching me that real power doesn't shout. It builds. Richard. I folded the note neatly, slid it into my red binder, the same one that once held proof of every slight. Proof now replaced by peace. Later that week, HR invited me to a community outreach event, college students visiting the company to meet mentors. I volunteered, of course. The young faces reminded me of myself before the gray came in, before patience became my strongest muscle. A student raised her hand. Mr. Morgan, how do you handle people who underestimate you? I smiled. By never underestimating myself. She grinned. That's it? That's everything, I said. Another asked, what's the best advice you ever got? My wife once told me peace don't shine unless you use it. They laughed, but I meant it. That night, back home, Sharon was setting out plates for dinner. Fried chicken, collard, rice, the Holy Trinity. She poured me sweet tea and said, you still glowing. I just told a few kids not to lose themselves trying to be seen. She smiled. That's you, all over again. We ate quiet for a while. The radio hummed a low gospel tune. Then she said, you ever gonna tell Marcus the full story? One day, not yet. Why not? Because it's not about revenge anymore. It's about rhythm, learning how to turn wrong into balance. She nodded. He'll understand. Outside, the night pressed soft against the window, and I thought of how full circles sneak up on you. The boy I'd once been, desperate to prove himself. The man Dalton once was, desperate to control. The young man Kyle became, learning that humility don't lower you. It centers you. Balance. That was the lesson. The next morning, I walked into work early again. The sun was just starting to rise, casting light across the glass doors. I caught my reflection in them, older, calmer, steady. I whispered, we made it. The reflection nodded back, as if it already knew. Winter crept in quiet over Atlanta. Frost kissed the office windows before sunrise, and the sky hung low with that pale blue calm that makes you whisper without knowing why. The building felt different now, not new, not grand, just settled, balanced. I parked in the same old spot. The flickering light pole was finally fixed. Funny how small repairs can mark the end of long storms. Inside, the office smelled of pine cleaner and peppermint. Someone in HR had hung a holiday wreath by the door. Laughter floated from the break room. For the first time in a long time, that sound didn't carry strain behind it. Kyle waved from his desk. Morning, Mr. Morgan. Morning, I said, setting my thermos down. You ready for the review? He grinned. Already filed the numbers and printed the report. You taught me well. Good, I said. Just remember, real work's done before the applause. He nodded. At 10 sharp, Dalton called the final meeting of the year. The conference room glowed warm under the ceiling lights. Everyone gathered: interns, staff, HR, even the janitor who'd been here longer than both of us. Dalton stood at the front, holding a small envelope. "Before we wrap the year," he began, "I'd like to acknowledge someone who didn't just build a program. He rebuilt our foundation." He looked at me. "Leonard, 22 years of service, 2 decades of quiet consistency, and one legacy that will outlast all of us." He opened the envelope and read from the card. "Effective January 1st, 2026, we are renaming our corporate mentorship endowment fund as the Morgan Fellowship, supporting first-generation college students entering our internship program." The room erupted in applause. Not polite, real, warm, long. Kyle's eyes were glassy. Even Dalton's voice cracked a little when he said, "It's the least we can do for a man who taught this company the difference between silence and surrender." I stood slowly, shaking his hand. "Appreciate it," I said. "But remember, I didn't do this alone." "You led it," he replied. I looked around the room. "Then let's keep leading. Together." When it ended, people lingered, talking, laughing. Kyle handed me the first official brochure, blue and silver, embossed with my name. The Morgan Fellowship, building character through quiet strength. I turned it over in my hand. My signature sat at the bottom, the same one I'd used on those old mentorship papers years ago. When I walked out of the building, the winter air hit cold and clean. Sunlight slid across the glass, like forgiveness. I drove straight to the church. Didn't tell anyone I was coming. Just parked under the big oak and walked inside. The sanctuary was empty except for the echo of the heating vents. I sat in the last pew, my usual spot. My knees creaked. My hands rested on the Bible left open from Sunday. I didn't pray for victory. I prayed for gratitude. Because revenge had never been about proving someone wrong. It was about proving patience could still win in a world that worships noise. When I got home, Sharon was waiting on the porch, bundled in her old red coat. She smiled the moment she saw the certificate in my hand. "So?" she asked. "It's done," I said. "They named it after me." She laughed softly. "Took 'em long enough." We sat side by side, the wood of the porch still warm from the afternoon sun. She laid her hand over mine. "You proud?" I thought for a moment. "Not proud," I said. "Just peaceful." She nodded. "That's better anyway." The street was quiet. Somewhere down the block, a church bell rang 5 times, slow and low. I leaned back, listening. "You know," I said, "when he cut my hours, I thought he'd taken something from me. Turns out he just made room for what was supposed to grow." Sharon smiled. "That's how faith works. It don't rush." I looked out across the neighborhood. Kids on bikes, neighbors hanging wreaths. The world turning easy again. Balance. That's what it was. Not revenge, not triumph. Balance. Inside my chest, the weight that had lived there for years finally lifted. Not loud, not dramatic, just gone. I stood up, looked toward the horizon where the sky turned gold over the rooftops, and whispered to myself, "Hours come and go, but peace. Peace stays on the clock." If this story spoke to you, like the video, subscribe and share your thoughts below.